Well, good evening, everybody. This is Jeff Morton. I am starting a new podcast tonight, live stream. We have been working on this now for a few weeks to get it right, and I can see already that something is wrong here, but that's okay. We're going to go live on Facebook tonight, and I'm going to be talking about quite a few things here. I've got, uh-oh, I lost my feed here. One moment. All right, there we go. Okay. Jeff Morton, thank you for tuning in. Uh, Carol, you can hear me. Carol's my engineer. He's in the background. I've got so much glare on my face. But anyway, we'll get through it. Here's kind of what this is all about. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it as an idea that I had to bring various people on board to talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. Within reason. I am a conservative. I'm a Trump supporter. I'm a biblical person. And so all of those things would apply to that kind of thought pattern, if you will. Tonight, we're going to talk about the coming solar eclipse. My guest next week is going to be Pastor Mark Biltz. He's going to go into depth about about what he's talking about with regard to all of this. And I want to just mention something about these solar eclipses. And I've got some show notes here, so you can see me looking down every once in a while. In 2007, I came across Pastor Mark Biltz, and I met him in Vancouver, Washington. And then from that moment on, I started driving up to Tacoma, Washington to learn what he was teaching. Now, we've got 16 years between us now, and I understand what he does and where he's at, and I've learned an awful lot from him. Uh, as he talks about the blood moons, I started seeing the blood moons as more of a way God was communicating to us. Of course, the world turns all that into prophecy, but I started really looking at it in terms of, who can cause the sun and the moon to move around on the biblical festivals and coincide with certain biblical dates with absolute precision. Man can't do that. So I started seeing maybe this is the way God is communicating to us. And the more that I learned about solar eclipses and lunar eclipses, it's not just a scientific thing, but maybe what if it's a biblical thing? Now, I want to back up a little bit. I used to have 5,000 people on Facebook. I'm doing a lot of stuff. I did a podcast with Dr. Dina Dye for 2.5 years. YouTube started shadow banning me, so didn't spend a lot of time doing that. Finally, I got so fed up with all of it, I just went, I'm done, and I took a break. Facebook put me in jail so many times that I figured it's time to leave Facebook. I went back on Facebook recently because of a couple of groups that I wanted to be involved in. So now I'm using the platform to do this for however long they will allow me to do it. Um, I don't want to do another biblical podcast. That's not what this is about. I'm okay to be very honest. Okay, I believe that the failure of the church to be politically engaged in our culture has been and continues to be the reason why the craziness that is going on in the United States of America is happening. We are no longer a part of the culture. We're actually vilified people of faith. And so I believe that happened when the church system, if you will, purchased the lie. And that lie was the separation of church and state. I also believe that the 501c3 kind of shut down the voice of the church in our culture. Now, when we're talking about the blood moons, there's a lot of things that have happened over the course of the last 16 years since 2007 that are remarkable when it comes to the United States of America. We're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to talk about a couple of solar eclipses. One happened in 2017. It went from Oregon all the way down to, I think, Florida. And the interesting thing about that is it crossed over several states, but specifically several cities called Salem. The reason why that's important is because Jerusalem used to be called Salem before the name change many, many years ago. The interesting thing about the solar eclipse coming up on August the 8th, or excuse me, April the 8th, is it's going to move across the United States in the opposite direction. And it's going to cross, coming out of Canada, several cities in the United States and Canada called Nineveh. Okay. Well, where they intersect is going to be in a place in Illinois called Little Egypt, believe it or not. So we have Jerusalem or Salem, we have Nineveh, and then we have Little Egypt. And in this particular part of Illinois, Little Egypt is also the city of Thebes is there. There's a couple of Egyptian names. And I look at that and I go, God, when you start talking about communicating things, you use everything that you've created to kind of broadcast that. Well, how uncanny is it that this is happening through Salem, Nineveh, and Egypt being the bullseye where the two intersect? I think that's fascinating. You have to understand, folks, I don't have a lot of time to go through all of the things that I have learned from both Pastor Mark as well as other people, and particularly in the Jewish community that's paying attention to these tetrads and these lunar and solar eclipses. In the Talmud, it discusses that there are passages in there that say a solar eclipse is bad for the nations, a lunar eclipse is bad for Israel. Now, the most fascinating thing about all of this is how many of these so-called eclipses line up with the biblical feast days. Now, people don't understand, we always talk about these Jewish festivals, the Jewish feast days. Let me read to you what it says here in the book of Exodus, starting in verse 12. Now, I'm going to tie this together, and please understand, this is important as far as biblically this is relevant. And okay, let me back up. There are people in this world that think the Bible is hooey. There are people in this world that think we're just a bunch of nutty people and that this is just an illusion or desperate brainwashed individuals. No. When you take biblical festivals, Jewish holy days, and line them up with the eclipses, and then things start happening. Like, for example, Jesus died at Passover. There was a major solar eclipse, and there was an earthquake. When the temples were destroyed, that was in the month of Av. These are biblical dates on a calendar that God instituted in Exodus 12, which is what I was going to read for you. It says here, now the Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, this month is the beginning of months for you. It shall be the first month of your year. So he's establishing a calendar before they leave Egypt, okay? You go over to Leviticus 23, and it says these festivals, these are the Lord's festivals. It doesn't say they're Jewish. It says these are the Lord's festivals. The Jewish people have been practicing these festivals for 3,800 years. So, but it's still the Lord's festivals. And what that means, the word is Moedim or Moed, and it's talking about biblical dates on a calendar that God established in the book of Exodus. There's a lot more to that, and I don't have time to get in all of that. Why that's important is because these solar eclipses with the name Jerusalem or Salem and Nineveh and Egypt, they're directly over the United States of America, both 2017 and now 2024, which is a 7-year period. When you understand the Shemitah stuff and all those kinds of things, and this becomes even more remarkable. So the reason that I'm talking about all of this is since Mark Biltz introduced the tetrads, the blood moons, we have seen a sort of chaos literally envelop the whole world. I have a list around here somewhere. I made a list of 25 things that have occurred since then, whether it be the earthquake in Japan, 2011, the earthquake in Haiti, 2008, I think it was, with, 200,000 people dead. whether it be the COVID, the virus, the the pandemic, whether it be uh, Russia invading Georgia and taking over that country, Russia going into Ukraine, Ukraine being the probably the most corrupt country in all of Europe. I can't really get into a lot of the specifics on that because it's just I don't have the time to do that. So I'm looking at this chaos that's happening globally. Then you have the introduction of the rise of the LGBT community becoming very politically engaged and very active. You see the things happening with the school children being sexualized. All of these things are happening at a rate that is just beyond belief. It's moving so fast, the chaos that we seem to be inviting in. We're seeing the collapse of the American culture. Uh, there's so many things that are happening that have absolutely nothing to do with law and order. We've seen the corruption exposed in Washington, D.C. Our nation is $34 trillion in debt, and the government keeps printing money and keeps telling us what we are going to be allowed to do and not allowed to do. The government doesn't have any money. They're printing money or taking ours. So we have lost so many of our freedoms since I started listening to this connection between the blood moons and the solar eclipses on the biblical festivals or the feast days. Now, I absolutely 100% believe that God created all of this. These things belong to Him, and He's doing whatever He can, or whatever, however He does what He does. But He's communicating. I really believe that there is a communication going on. It's kind of like with Jonah. He was told to go warn Nineveh, and he did reluctantly, and that nation was spared because it repented. Hopefully, of course, Nineveh was destroyed about 50 years later. But I really, really, really do believe that God is communicating to us that we are heading towards disaster. Now, I don't believe that God's getting ready to toss. This is very important, folks. I don't believe God is getting ready to toss lightning bolts down and destroy everything. I believe that He's warning us about what we're about to do. We're the ones. We're the ones who are out of control, whether it be ISIS, whether it be America, whether it be the things happening in the Christian and Catholic churches. We're the ones who are out of control. And the laws of God state that when you get out of control, these things happen. This is a natural occurrence. The earth is sick and the people are in chaos. And so that's kind of my position on this. I really, truly believe that because we stopped being the voice in America and we gave the authority to the government to dictate terms, that now we're living under what I would call tyrannical government on the rise. Okay, let's talk about just for a minute Donald Trump, who I voted for and will vote for again. What this man has endured since he became president is unbelievable. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Now they're trying to steal his fortune. They've already stripped him of his due process in this nation. And I'm sitting here watching, whether it be Fannie down in Georgia or whether the one up in New York City or you name it, the legal system is doing everything it can to crush this individual. And so if you look at what they are doing to him, what the government and the legals, the legal systems are doing to Donald Trump, that's going to be me or you or our grandkids or our kids. Because if they can do that to Donald Trump, who was president of the United States of America, they have no problem doing it to me and you. And so for me, it's kind of like as I watch these warning signs that we are spiraling out of control, and the natural consequence is cataclysmic destruction that's been historic. I fear for the United States of America. I fear for what we have become and how it is not sustainable. So, the whole reason I'm doing Let's Talk About It is because whether we're talking about political stuff, whether we're talking about biblical stuff, or whether we're talking about something you're doing to fight back, to resist what is happening to the United States of America, uh, that's what this show's about. And if you want to be a guest, you just need to contact me, jsmorton at protonmail.com. I'm not looking for a bunch of, I don't see the biblical story as a religious story. I see it as a governmental story. This is a behavior issue. This is how you believe. I believe that those rules and those laws governing order is what the Bible is trying to communicate, in addition to the revelation of God through the people of Israel. As you can see behind me, I have a flag. I support Israel's right to exist. Uh, the United States of America, to me, is the most amazing country the world has ever known, insofar as people poured into this country for the ideal of freedom. Uh, I'm not into the bandwagon of reparations or the injustices of black people and the enslavement of black people. That's not my brain at all. I believe that the people who came before me, who fought against tyrannical government in order for people to enjoy the fruits of freedom, to prosper, and to find their own way, I believe those people should be honored and celebrated. The people who inflicted the horror of slavery, I don't want to give them people 2 cents of my time. I want to honor the folks who fought against it. That's why I wrote the book on coloring race. It really truly is a remarkable thing for the United States of America to have overcome so much, and then to see multiculturalism and all of this woke stuff putting us back into a segregated society where we now have AI that's going to kind of take over quite a bit of the industries and the lives of people via technology. So it's a sad state of affairs, folks. It really is a sad state of affair, and I want to talk about it. I want to scream. I want to make as much noise as possible to try to get us to course correct before it's too late. I was listening to uh, reading information about how China and um, North Korea and Iran are doing everything they can to develop the methods to take out the electronic grid of the United States and certainly shut down communication. This stuff is real. This is real. I absolutely get this. I listened to Dan Bongino, who I have profound respect for. You know, Rush Limbaugh's gone now. Um, what I like about the contrast, if I contrast Rush, Rush was informing us of the lunacy. Dan Bongino is telling us you better fight back. So, and he just lost his mother. She fell down and she's gone. I lost my mother. Losing your mother to me is kind of like losing the best part of who you are, and I've said that several times since my mom passed. But when it comes to Dan Bongino, he's absolutely right. He is so absolutely right, spot on. These people are stealing the United States of America, and the people are watching it happen as opposed to stopping it from happening. So let's talk about it as my idea to say, please come on, tell me what you're doing. This show we don't have a great big audience. Everybody wants a camera and they want a great big audience. We don't have an audience. This is brand new for me. And I'm moving out of the biblical stuff to talk politics and to talk, you better fight back. You better grab the reins and hold on. because I think we're headed for some crazy stuff. And my fear is that we're going to see, and I really mean what I'm about to tell you. My fear, I can visualize cruise missiles exploding over the United States of America. Yeah, I mean they're happening in Ukraine. What makes us think that that can't happen here? And I want to talk a little bit about Israel. Um, on October the 7th, Hamas came across the border and slaughtered thousands of people, women, children. I was watching something earlier today where they brought incinerator devices to throw in the cars to burn people instantly, turn them to ashes. I'm sitting here. This is evil. This is evil beyond measure. We went through ISIS, Al Qaeda, all of this stuff to destroy people. Now I support Israel. I don't know their politics. I used to track all that stuff. But to have these people blown up, murdered in their homes, to have the whole world. Okay, this is where I get a little bent. The whole world believes that there are Palestinian people that have occupied that land for 2,000 years. Okay, that is so not true. It is so not true. And I can prove it to you by simply asking you four questions. Name for me the kings and queens of Palestine 500 years ago or even 1,000 years ago. Name for me the scientific, academic, and archaeological evidence that there was a people called the Palestinian people who occupied a land called Palestine. Show me their governments. Show me the wars that they won or lost. Show me the development of this people for 2,000 years who lived supposedly in Judea and Samaria. It's a complete lie. These are actually refugees that the Arab nations wouldn't take back after Israel defeated many of the Arab nations in their horrible attack on them in 1948, 49. I know the truth. I understand the Balfour Declaration. I understand how Jordan was created out of thin air and the land was taken away from Israel in order to do that. I understand the thirst for oil that caused Israel to lose 80% of the land that they were gifted after World War II or after World War One. And also, I'm currently reading a book, reading the book by Theodore Herzl, about why he wanted the Jewish state. And the very first introductory chapter says he got this great big revelation from God saying, go do this. And 50 years later, the nation of Israel was born again. It's the only nation in the history of the world to be born again. It's the only nation in the history of the world to have its people scattered all over the world and maintain their identity. They gave us the entire Bible. Jesus, or Yeshua proper, was Jewish. All of the matriarchs that we talk about, or patriarchs that we talk about, that story is about God revealing himself to the nations through a people called Israel, a land called Israel, an ideal called Israel. And for the world to try to crush this people makes no sense at all. It's insidious. It's it's we should be celebrating what these people have done and endured, and yet the whole world, most of the world, wants to push them into the Mediterranean Sea, take the land that they purchased through Abraham away from them, and we believe this outrageous lie about a people called Palestinians. The truth is, in the year 136, 137 AD, an emperor named Hadrian, who was gay, by the way, he completely changed the name after basically kicking most of the Jews out of the land. He insulted them by naming the land Philistia, which was kind of an insult against their ancient enemy, the Palestinians. So the word Palestine evolved from that. Jews have occupied the land for as long as since Moses. So the point I'm trying to make is the world believes a lie, and we believe a lie about slavery. We believe a lie about the education system. We believe a lie about the abortion. We believe a lie about the Jewish people. We believe something that's not true. You've got young college students out in the street protesting what Israel's reaction was to this outrageous slaughtering of their people. And these people don't even know. They don't even know anything about the history. Nothing. They're like 22, 23, 24-year-old kids who've been brainwashed on United States colleges, campuses, to believe something that's not true. Yeah, this is a big button for me, folks. So let's talk about it as the people who understand what I'm talking about, and the people who understand a little bit about this blood moon solar eclipse phenomenon that's happening, specifically tied to the biblical calendar. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the political onslaught that Donald Trump and his family are facing. There's trouble for Donald Trump. These people are not going to stop trying to crush this man from becoming a president. Why? Why? And we got pronouns, we got all kinds of sexual deviants running the country. Man, when you read the Bible and you say, hey, there's going to be a time of great lawlessness, Israel was always defeated because of sexual immorality. It's just crazy how we're repeating the same thing. I always tell people the story is not new. We're just a part of what was. In other words, we're not a new thing. We're what they produced. So when you move away from order, then you have no choice but to live in chaos. I've got grandkids. You've got grandkids. Listen, our nation is $34 trillion in debt. Just think about that. $34 trillion in debt. This current president crushed all of the things that Donald Trump did to free us from the burden of government, from the bondage of government. He killed all of these programs that literally killed enterprise in this nation, manufacturing. We were producing oil right here. We were number one. He crushed all of it. Barack Obama, worst president of my lifetime. Worst president of my lifetime until Joe Biden. I understand what Barack Obama was all about. I totally get it. He hated the capitalist system and he wanted to crush it. He studied the works of Piven, and I can't think of the other person's name. How do you destroy capitalism? You overwhelm its ability to pay for itself. So, folks, when you see $34 trillion in debt, the United States no longer has the ability to pay for itself. We're printing fake money. That's why everything you buy is skyrocketing through the roof. Okay, that was the plan. Destroy the United States of America by crushing its ability to pay for itself. The Chinese folks came in and said, let's corrupt their school system. Let's fill their campuses up with a bunch of liberal lunatics. And let's do all this crazy stuff in order to destroy the country from within. The first thing we got to do is divide them. Let's start with the black folks. Let's get this whole slavery issue ramped up, and white man is evil. Let's do all that. That all happened as a result of Barack Obama. And so what I'm trying to say to people, and I probably get banned off Facebook with this, there's a systematic takedown of the United States occurring. And most of us are just trying to work and feed our families. But the problem is they know that, and that's what they're taking advantage of. shut down the voice of the believers, destroy its ability to pay for itself, completely wipe away the border so that it has no sovereignty, and eventually we'll get it gone. That's the plan. And too many Americans are sitting here watching this happen without really watching this happen. Granted, there are Americans who are very aware of what's happening, and we got problems. You know, if you think those good old boys are going to sit back and let you take their country away from them, uh, no. You think our military is going to say, okay, we're going to go ahead and kill a bunch of Americans? No, but even in that, they started loading up our military with foreigners, and they don't have any allegiance to this nation. Let me ask you a question. I kind of eviscerated my show notes here, but let me ask you a question. If you take a young person and you teach them that America's bad, and you completely remove any concept of the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, or the U.S. Constitution, if you completely eviscerate the teaching of that in the school years, when they become 25, 26 years old, going to these liberal colleges where these people are teaching them to hate us and hate America, what are they going to fight for when it comes time to fight for this land? What do they have? Where's their allegiance? If they don't know their rights, they don't understand the freedom, and they don't understand the United States of America's Constitution, what are they going to fight for? We're seeing that happen now. You can go out the door, you can ask any 25-year-old person, name 5 things, name 5 amendments on the U.S. Constitution, and you will get a deer in the headlights moment. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the U.S. Constitution. Let's talk about the Bill of Rights. Let's talk about the history of the United States. Let's talk about the crazy lies that have been perpetrated. Let me ask you another question. How come you have never been taught about the Arab slave trade and about the caliphate system that shipped slaves all over the world for 1,400 years out of Africa? How come you don't know anything about that? How come the only thing you know about is the white man in the South who enslaved black people? How come you don't talk about the 900 and so black slave owners in Louisiana just in the 1800s alone? How come you don't know anything about that? How come you don't know Jesus was Jewish, for God's sakes? These are the things that we need to talk about. And I think if we start talking about these things, maybe, just maybe, enough people will say, you know what, I'm going to go dig in and do some deep diving myself so I can learn a few things, so I have a reason to fight. Because I'm going to tell you something, folks. You're going to have to fight. You are going to have to fight if things keep going the way they're going. So let's talk about it. I want to talk to politicians. I want to talk to the person that's out there taking care of babies. I want to talk to the person who used to think abortion was a great idea and now doesn't. I want to talk to the black fathers who raise their kids as opposed to dotting the neighborhood with kids from hundreds of different women. I want to talk to the men in the United States of America, not somebody's kid. I want to talk to people who understand why we need police officers. I want to talk with people about things that make sense, that are common to all of us. If we don't have the rule of law in our nation, we have chaos. So let's talk about it as offering to you. Come on my show. We'll figure this out. We're learning how to do this. I wanted to do something a little better than I have done in the past, and that's what I'm trying to do here. My budget is as long as your fingernail. Okay, but over the years, I bought all this equipment because I believe if you do absolutely nothing, folks, absolutely nothing's going to get done. So I bought all this equipment. It's been sitting here collecting dust. I want to put it to use. I got involved in all these political movements here. The Republican Party in Washington State. Ugh. Um, I've never voted for a Democrat since I've been alive. Never will, unless something miraculous happens. Uh, and the Republican Party, used to represent a lot of folks in this nation. Now they're part of the same swamp, in my opinion. Not everybody, but trust me. I look at Jim Jordan and I look at all these different investigations and I look at all these different things that they're doing in Washington to get to the bottom of things. Lois Lerner got away scot free. Okay, are you with me? Hillary Clinton got away scot free. James Comey got away scot free. Loretta, whatever her name was, got away scot free. Clinton, Bill Clinton, got away scot free. Nobody's gone to jail, folks. Nobody's paid for the corruption that you and I have witnessed these last 20 years. So I sit here and I look at the investigations going on in Washington, D.C. I don't know Jim Jordan. He's always talking about an investigation that nothing has happened to the people breaking the laws and creating chaos in our government. Nothing. But if you are a conservative, you're going to jail. Who was it that just went to jail for 4 months because of I can't, what is his name? It escapes me. He went to jail for 4 months. He's a political prisoner. The J6 Commission is a gigantic farce. And yet people are in prison. We got political prisoners in the United States of America. Yeah, I agree with Dan Bongino. Let's talk about it. He's out here doing this thing every single day, talking about how crazy the nation has become because the people who don't want to see this nation survive are running the show. So that's what this program's all about. I'm going to live stream. I tried to do Rumble tonight. Something happened. It didn't work. I tried to do Wimkin. Let me tell you about Wimkin. The guy named Jason, he started Wimkin with the sole purpose of giving you a place to be able to speak your mind. There's another one coming up called Light something. I can't remember it, but you know what? Let me take a little break here. I'm going to come back in a few minutes. My engineer is standing by. You want to go ahead and run that spot? This spot, by the way, is my wife's business. She said, I want to make healthier products for women and for people, but she said, I want to make them pretty. And so she started a business called The Body Shack Makes Sense. And we're going to run a little clip of her stuff. We'll be back on the other. Well, that's my wife's stuff. I'm very proud of her. I married a very talented woman who, she could make the clothes I'm wearing. She's very artsy, very creative. And she started this website and started this business, and she started making these products. And she's done, pretty well. We'd love to see more sales, so take a peek. It's called The Body Shack Makes Sense. You go to thebodyshackmakesense.com is her website. And purchase some of her stuff. She'll be more than happy to ship it to you within the continental United States of America. Her website, again, thebodyshackmakesense.com. Okay. Now that I've had my rant, so here's the deal. Here's my show notes, okay? I didn't follow most of it. We can toss that in the trash. I'm going to run for just about another 15 minutes before I end the show. But I really, 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 really hope that you will consider this solar eclipse A friend of mine, Lars Anderson, he has a video outlining some stuff. It's called, what is it called? It's called, if you go on YouTube, On the Edge of World War II or Three. Uh, can you can you put that up on the screen, Carol? On the Edge of World War III. You can go to YouTube and check out what he wrote or what he's done. It's very, very good. Uh, I don't know if Carol can get that up for you, but again, On the Edge of World War III, WW123. Lars Henderson, he kind of outlines his take on the solar eclipses, and he does a presentation that's a little more in depth than I'm wanting to do on this program. Again, I don't want this to be a religious program. That's not my goal. I believe in the Bible. I just don't see it through a Christian lens anymore. So I don't want to try to do all that stuff to spread the gospel, if you will. What I want to do is say, look at this thing from a different lens. Think about a king, a kingdom, a political structure, and the rule of law. Because if you think about Moses, let's go back to Abraham. Abraham stood before a couple of kings. He grabbed 300 men and went and saved Lot. Okay. How can just a poor street vendor run out and do all of this unless he was royal and yet he was facing political chaos? We could move to Moses. He's dealing with his little half brother who's on the throne. You're not taking the throne. Moses is going, I don't want the throne. Let my people go. So he's dealing with political turmoil. And move all the way up to the disciples. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about Esther and Mordecai. They're all dealing with political rulers in tyrannical governments that put people to death. John the Baptist was killed by Herod. The disciples were slaughtered, most of them. Paul was chased through the New Testament because he was trying to say, listen, here is the kingdom of God. Here is the rules. He quoted the Old Testament more than any biblical writer of the New Testament or Bible in general. So, but I don't want to have a religious conversation. I want you to understand that the Bible was very, very, very political. And there were political tyrants that enslaved the people. The whole entirety of the Bible was about freedom. So, yes, I look at it from that lens. There's so much miraculous stuff going on in those pages, and particularly when you read it in Hebrew, it's mind-blowing. But I don't want this show to be a teaching thing about the Bible. Go learn or unlearn if you have to on your own. Do your own deep dive. The thing I read to you about Exodus 12, I'll just give you a little something about that. Exodus 12 says here, take a lamb and kill it on the 10th day. You're going to get this lamb. You're going to make sure it's perfect. And then you're going to barbecue it. And you're going to take the blood and put it on the doorpost of your house. Let me translate that for you. You got this from Mark Biltz, actually. I want you to kill the number one god in all of Egypt, Ra. I want you to barbecue it so the smell goes up all over Egypt. I want you to put his blood on the door so they know you did it. And then we're leaving in a couple of days. Here's something very, very interesting about that story. This happened on the feast day. It was the Passover. I'll challenge everyone who's listening to me, go read Joshua 4:19. Because if you don't know the feast days, Joshua 4:19 is just another passage in the Bible. But when you understand Joshua 4:19, 40 years later, there's great significance to it. But you won't know that if you don't understand the calendar. So I challenge you to go read 4:19, Joshua 4:19. When did they come up out of the Jordan? All right, you go check that out yourself. And here's another thing. Jesus, to most of you Christians, I know him as Yeshua, the Messiah. He rode into Jerusalem on the 10th day of the first month, and he was uh, he was inspected by Herod, Pontius Pilate, and Caiaphas. And they said, well, there's nothing wrong with him. Then on the 14th day, he was killed. Well, we just read that in Exodus. So we're seeing the story begin, and then we see it end with the death of the lamb. It's the Bible is communicating more than just a bunch of words. And I think the same thing is true when it comes to the solar eclipses. The fact that the United States has got a bullseye on its on its back in the center of the country, and these whole things represent war and invading armies and all this. It's just kind of really, there's no such thing as coincidence in the Bible, but it's just interesting to see that our government is in chaos. The people are believing crazy stuff, woke, CRT. What is that? CRT. It's so stupid. I try not to remember it, but you have to know what it is. They're teaching our kids to be sexually immoral in kindergarten. We're in trouble. So the show is about you. It's about those of you who understand what we're dealing with to come on and talk about it. Let's talk about what you know, what you understand, and share it with the people, the listening audience. My engineer is Carol Gleason. I've known him for a long time. I think about 15 years, 2007, 2008, we met. I asked him if he could help me do this because I don't have a budget for this. And he said, yes, I'd be happy to do it. He used to do a lot of things for a lot of us back in the day. He's 83 years old now. So, Carol, I really appreciate you stepping up to the plate. He's down in the Portland area. I'm up near Seattle. I'm in Tacoma, just outside of Tacoma. And we're putting this show on to encourage you to do something. If you do absolutely nothing is going to get done by you. You have to save our country, folks. You have to repent and say, God, forgive us for what we've allowed to happen to the land that you gave to us. And then you have to fight back. Here's the part that you really have to get a hold of. You are going to have to fight if they keep taking away our freedoms. So my guest next week is going to be Pastor Mark Biltz. He's going to come on. I don't know how much time he's going to spend with us. But now I want to say something about my relationship with Pastor Mark. Pastor Mark he's a nice guy. He's pretty harmless about stuff. But he's a teacher. And even though some of the things that he teaches I no longer agree with, it's the bulk of information that he poured into my life that caused me to go out and seek and do and learn. I started learning from academics, people who studied a certain subject for 40 and 50 years, and I began to realize, oh my God, there's a wealth of information in their minds that's not even you don't even hear this in the church system. The seminary people and the academic people, they don't even know each other. So I started doing my own deep dive, and I started going, oh, wait a minute. Something, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, where did Cain's wife come from? Why did they call Jesus a gardener? Well, believe it or not, there's a historical record that outlines some of those things and explains it. You just have to go to the right sources. Now, there's some people out there that I've read their stuff and it's good, but they got some loopy stuff in there too. So, like Pastor Mark Biltz says, you got to eat the chicken and leave the bones. I totally understand that, okay, because there's some loopy stuff out there. I eventually have Dr. Dina Dye. We did a podcast for 2.5 years called Returning to Eden. She's agreed to come on. She actually said something to me here recently. She's experiencing a little bit of surgery with her husband right now, and we'll be praying for her. Please keep Dina Dye, those of you who know what I'm talking about, in your thoughts. But she said something to me. I've been talking about this government stuff for a long time, and Dina's in the same lane. But she said to me a few days ago, looking at this from a governmental perspective, her words, is a game changer. Well, I certainly understand that. It's government. You can take the religion, you can have your spirit filled people, you can do all that stuff, follow that whatever denomination, there's like 36,000 of them, take your pick. You can do the messianic stuff, you can do the Hebrew root stuff, whatever it is you do in that religious arena, the government is kicking your butt. Okay? The government is oppressing you, taking your rights away, shutting down your churches, and telling your kids you don't have to do that. So you could go out there and do the Jesus loves me thing all day long, but it ain't going to stop the government from shutting you down, taking your freedoms away from you, and eviscerating the land of the free. That's what's happening in our nation. Let me ask you a question before I go. How do you pay back $36 trillion? How do you do that? I have a budget in my house. I don't make a lot of money. I can't pay back $36 trillion. The country is in debt more than our GDP. Guys, wake up. Before we go, we're going to show you. Pastor Mark Biltz has got a new book coming out. I asked him to send me a video. He sent me a video. Carol, could you go ahead and play that video now, please?
The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Then the Messiah returns.
Thank you, sir. So Pastor Mark Biltz is going to join me next week on the 27th. He's going to talk a bit about his book. I don't have the book yet. Otherwise, I would have read it. I've read all of his books. You know, like us, Professor Skip Bowen says, it's okay to disagree. It keeps the conversation alive. So Mark is a friend, and I'm looking forward to having him come on and explaining more about these blood moons. Now, he will tell you that as a child, he had this fascination with astronomy, biblical astronomy, eventually, not astrology. But he started considering all the vastness of space, and for some reason, he got hooked into looking at the stars through a telescope and whatnot. One day in his prayer closet, and he'll tell you this, he was asking questions of God, and God said, look at the festivals. They're lined up with the festivals. And that is what changed him. Okay. I've had personal experiences with the Lord God Almighty too that are mind bending. Most recently, I heard my mother call my name while I was sleeping. It woke me up. And I swear it was like she was in the same room with me. So I believe there's so much more that we don't understand. And I agree with Dan Bongino, who said he felt when his mother died, he didn't know she died, but something hugged him. I totally get it. Totally get it. So next week, Pastor Mark Biltz, he's going to be on. We're going to spend some time talking about the solar eclipse that happened in 2017. And he's going to line up the solar eclipses that America has personally had go over this country 8 times now. And each time there was an instance of war. So that's going to be interesting. He'll share more about that next week. So I'm trying to put this together. If you want to help me, I'll take your help. Before I forget, that little clip that my wife, we put together for my wife, if you have a little clip about something you're involved in, something you want to share, someone you're helping, if you have a little 30-second clip, this is really important, that I can promote on the show. I'm not asking you for money. I just need to break up the time, but I'd also like to give an opportunity to promote whatever it is you're doing. If it's something that lines up with the way this show is being conducted, and I approve it, I will run it. We'll give it to Carol and he'll put it on the screen. But don't be afraid to send me something. Um, don't send me anything vulgar, sexual, or stupid. Okay, send me something that lines up with the heart of this show. And the heart of this show is let's talk about what you're doing to fight back before we lose everything. So this is Jeff Morton. Again, my email is jsmorton, Jeff Scott Morton, jsmorton at protonmail.com. This video is going to be edited and put on my website, which is freefromfear.us. And again, I am a conservative. I'm a biblical conservative. I don't think too much of people like Jesse Jackson or I can say this 1,000 ways, 1,000 times. I am not a victim of my skin color, and I don't believe that you need to pay me because of what happened to people 200 years ago, 100 years ago, or 75 years ago. I'm not that person. My book, Uncoloring Race, I easily could have called it Uncoloring Stupid because I see all people as beautiful. I really do. And I really mean that. This is Jeff. Thank you for watching. Let's talk about it. Hope to see you next week. Thank you. Bye bye.